Good evening. I'd like to call the December 19th meeting of New Canaan High School's Board of Education, or the New Canaan Board of Education, to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Could I get a motion to approve? We'll start with the December 5th regular meeting.
December 6th?
Yes, it says December 5th there, but it's December 6th.
It should be the 6th.
Yep, sorry about that. So the December 6th meeting. If anybody, once you've had a chance, could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I would,
Pen?
I think in item, I'm moving to approve, I just think Cohn-Resnick, I think it's 2 words, not 1, isn't it?
Where are you?
Item Roman numeral 5-1.
We'll take a look. On his slide, it was 1, if I recall.
Really?
But we can
Okay.
take a look, and that's an editing change we can make
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
Sure.
it's not, whatever it is.
Sure.
Okay,
So anyhow, motion to approve.
all right, so Penny, second. Hazel, all those in favor? Penny? Okay. Now, moving on to the budget workshop. We have the December 12th budget workshop minutes, and when you've had a second, could I get a motion to approve the budget workshop? Hazel, second. Do I have a second? Penny? I know. All those in favor? Oh, that's right, you weren't there. Okay, it's fine. We'll have 2 abstentions. Okay, that's great.
Still got 3 out of 5.
That's right.
That's right.
Majority of the quorum.
Majority of the quorum.
Love the- All right. The next item is the review and approval of the agenda. We'd like to move the action items to at least just the VPA field trip action item to the first item after comments from the public. Could I get a motion to move that action item? Brendan, may I have a second? Jen, all those in favor? Okay. So that's
And
great.
vote-
I don't
vote
need to.
approve the agenda.
So could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Penny, second. Hazel, all those in favor? All right. Moving on, to comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Do I have anyone who would like to speak to the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the VPA field trip action item. And we have Mr. Sneath and Mrs. Gleason.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us time on tonight's agenda. We're happy to be here. We have 3 high school students that have been selected to perform with the mixed chorus at the National Association for Music Educators Eastern Division Conference. It is in Atlantic City, April the 5th through the 8th. This is a huge honor for our students and for our high school teacher, Ms. Gleason. I have to tell you, this is my 10th year in the district. This is the first time we've had 3 choir students selected. And that really speaks on behalf of Ms. Gleason and the work that she's done with our students. She actually taught many of them at the middle school, and she's had them only for a year and a half here at the high school. So I just wanted to introduce Ms. Gleason and give her the floor, and then if you have any questions about the trip, we'll answer them in a bit.
Great.
I'll give you brief information about the trip and the honor that these students have been selected for, and then I'll take any questions. This is new for all of us. The National Association for Music Education each has their own state organization, and our state organization is CMEA, Connecticut Music Educators Association Conference, and that is the organization through which our students in band, choir, and orchestra audition for region and state ensembles every year. So all 3 of these students were selected for the all-state choir last year. And then when you are still selected for your all-state ensemble, you have the opportunity, if in the next year, if you are not a senior, in the next year, if there are any regional or national ensembles that are being put together for the next year, you can apply and audition for those. And so I worked with these 3 students, Tessa and Lauren and Finley, in the spring, and they put an application process and a teacher recommendation, and they took their all-state scores from Connecticut, And they were put together with the 11 states that are in the Eastern Division. So it is Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, all the way up to Maine. And then they took all state scores, teacher recommendations, student resumes, and then put together the ensemble. So in the mixed chorus, they selected 28 students from the state of Connecticut, and they chose 3 of ours. And I think that is absolutely incredible. And so the conference, it's a part of the NAFME Eastern Division Conference. It's a big conference for music educators in all strands, not only school music educators, but church and community. It's a national music education organization. So the conference is April 5th through 8th, and at this conference they have honor ensembles. And so our students have been selected for the mixed choir. It's very similar to the all-state process, which we are very familiar with, in that they stay, all the students in the mixed choir and the band and the orchestra actually are in the Claridge Hotel, and they are chaperoned by music educators. I was a chaperone for the state conferences here for 3 different years, and the chaperones have very specific duties that they are with those students, that students are in rehearsal or at a planned event. There really is no free time. They're rehearsing 9-10 hours a day, and then at planned events with the choir. And they're chaperoned there, and there are 2 students per room. And then they rehearse for 3 days straight, and then they put on a big performance on Saturday. And so everything is arranged for them once they get there. The only thing that we have to take care of with the students, or the family have to take care of, is the housing and registration fee, which is a total of $500. The registration is $135, and the housing is the rest of it. And then they are to provide their own transportation there. And what Mr. Sneath and I have been working on is we would like to help these students with that cost if possible. We would definitely like to help them get there so that all 3 families do not have to transport them to Atlantic City on the 5th, which is a Wednesday, because I'm pretty sure all 3 families will go on the 8th to hear them perform, and so 2 trips back and forth to Atlantic City. So that's the basic idea of this honor and this performance that they will be able to participate in the 3-day clinic leading up to it with students from 11 different states. What questions can I answer that I know of about the opportunity?
Well, thank you, Ms. Gleason and Mr. Sneath. I'd just like to start and thank you for all the work you've put in to helping to develop the choir program at the high school. I mean, it's pretty amazing some of these opportunities these kids are getting as a result of your efforts. So I just want to thank you for all of that on behalf of the kids. Do I have any questions from the board? Jen.
So I also want to say, we've had you at Sax, and unfortunately my boys didn't continue their chorus, but I saw your concert last week. I know. I saw your concert last week, and I was absolutely floored. It was amazing what you have done, and we are so fortunate to have you here. And I think this sounds so amazing. It's such a great opportunity for these kids, and so thank you, really, for leading the charge.
And I should have said who these students are. Seniors Tessa Pionkowski, senior Lauren Carlson, Deanna's daughter, and junior Finley Bigliotti, 2 sopranos and a tenor.
Do the families, are they paying all the costs? Like what?
So when this happened very fast, we were notified 21st of November. We just found out that they made the ensemble. And so by this past week, they had to put in some paperwork to reserve their spot. And so we had each of the families do a $50 deposit just to reserve their spot and fill out the paperwork, and then signed by Mr. Egan that we mailed in to say, yes, they would like to do it. Mr. Sneath and I asked the families, from what they have said to me verbally, they're willing to pay it. This is huge for their children, and they want to. What we said to them is do the $50 deposit, let us get it officially approved. We would like to try to honor your accomplishment and be able to help you some, and we obviously need to go through proper channels and work that out. But all 3 families want this and are willing to do whatever necessary is what has been portrayed to me.
Great.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I guess, should we go for the vote now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if I could get a motion, and to be totally frank with everybody, I mean, you've mentioned it, but I've checked before the meeting. I don't have to recuse myself on the vote. So I didn't know.
We know what she's voting.
But you did check.
I did check. I didn't want to.
Very honest.
So anyway, if I could get a motion to approve a field trip to the National Association for Music Education Eastern Division Conference to perform in the all-division mixed choir ensemble April 5th through the 8th, 2017 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Hazel. Second. Brendan. All those in favor? Any? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And I think you can see why our choral program is more than doubled in the last year and a half or so. Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to the reports and recognition. The first item on our agenda is the facilities and capital projects update with Mr. Willoughby.
And actually, we have Mr. Willoughby, but we're also going to have, there's a technology component here. So we also have our capital lease. And so Scott and Matt, Mr. Barnett and Mr. Salvestrini will be joining us for part of this conversation as well. We'll start with Bob, giving an overview of we've had a pretty long discussion today. We've had quite a few discussions in the last few weeks about capital plan. As you know, we have a 5-year capital plan that we update each year with our budget. However, it's a 5-year plan, so things do change year by year. Some new things may come up. Less frequently, some things that were on there can be deferred or moved away, but generally, we learn new things and have to make some adjustments to the plan itself. Bob's going to talk about some of the priority areas at each of our locations and show us, I think, the sort of what we were thinking about as far as the capital plan for facilities. Then we'll have Matt and Scott do the same and hit a couple of high points around the technology. As you know, the budget itself, sort of finished and presented to the Board of Education, will be presented at the first meeting in January. So this is, again, we're talking more at a high level around ideas and concepts of it. Bob,
Thanks very much.
you're welcome.
Trying to move this over. Oh, there we go. Okay. District-wide, we tried to put some items together, taking a look at engineering services, and there are quite a few things in the budget that have to do with structural, masonry repairs, things of that nature, and they're spread out all across the 5-year plan. So we want to put some money in here for engineering services so we can get a better handle on what it is we really need. We knew that we had some issues with the masonry. We knew we had some issues with the structural. We had an architect look at it. Now we have an engineer that's back looking at it, trying to come up with some recommendations and get it to a place where we can have some bid documents put together and we can get it out on the street and get moving forward. And if there are any questions as we go through this, I don't know if you want to take them at the end, do you want to take them through the middle, whatever makes sense.
Why don't we just take them at, yeah.
Do them
Okay.
along the way, because
By
we'll be-
school?
I think just as
As you have
Bob's
questions?
talking,
Okay,
as questions
there's only
come up,
5
if
of
they
us, I
do.
guess it
Yeah.
won't be. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay. The UST, the underground storage tanks, the emergency maintenance on them. We're working with an engineer right now, trying to develop a plan that we can present to the EPA to make sure we're in compliance with all the things. I know we've talked about it numerous times. We're going to move forward on that plan, and the tanks are coming out of the ground in 2019-20, so timing's of the essence. But there is some pieces in between that we have to have some dollars in our plan to cover all the compliance issues. They may ask us to come back and pressure test the tanks again on an annual basis, so on and so forth. So we've got some money plugged into the budget for that. General exhaust in all the buildings, we've made some repairs to them. Moving forward, we still have to replace some of the units. It'll help get general exhaust, has nothing to do with really the HVAC with the heat and the air conditioning, but it'll get general exhaust in the building to circulate the air, get us a positive airflow. Main electrical switchgear, and I think I touched on this a while back. We really haven't done a great job on taking care of our electrical switchgear. It needs to be maintained on a regular basis. We've deferred it a few times. We really need to get in there. We do some infrared studies on it, tighten it up, and make sure that we're not going to have some catastrophic event that the switchgear is going to fail and we're not going to have power in the building.
Is this the main switch, Bob? What is, I don't
It's the main switchgear that comes into the building that distributes the electricity throughout the entire building. We're looking at it in all the buildings. I think probably the last time they were looked at it when we did some renovations. So some of the elementary schools probably didn't get looked at since 1995.
And we had a failure at Sax, was it last year?
Yes, and we made
3
that
in the morning.
repair. Yep.
And we had it repaired by 5:30 in the morning or so.
Oh, yeah.
And we were able to open school and everything worked out okay, thanks to you and your team. But we don't need a repeat of this.
Yeah, and that's really it's something that's a necessity, and I think I've been preaching this story for a while. There's a logjam coming, there's some big dollars coming down the pike. These are some of the things that are going to avoid some stomach lining for the superintendent and the Board of Education down the road. Maintenance vehicle. Putting together a plan where we're going to try to change our fleet of trucks over the next 5 years. We're looking at one additional truck this year. Our expenses on the older models has become exorbitant. We have units that were purchased in 2003, 2005, and at the time they were used. So, yeah, they don't get a lot of wear and tear. They're not over the road, but the start, stop all the time, back and forth to the buildings, they're falling apart. It's time to do something. So we'll show one in this year's coming budget, and then we'll plot them out over the course of the next 5 years to try to replace everything in the fleet. Playground restoration. It's been ongoing. I know the town is looking at doing some work. We feel that it's really at a critical stage where we need to do some additional work with drainage, new mulch, curbing. We've done a great job of putting a lot of new playground equipment out there. We just haven't, the town is working with us. They're trying to put some money in the budget. We just don't think it's enough in the proper timing. We think we need to move forward on it rather quickly. We've had some children injured because of the condition of the mulch. We maintain the playgrounds. We have them inspected all the time. This is something that's been, we had extra mulch a couple of times in the last few years. The town has appropriated some money. We just think that it's time to move forward, and we'll have some discussions with the town on that.
Can I just ask, so I know that West Schools did their playground, the past 5 years or so, and then South School. Are we talking all the schools? This isn't just the equipment. You're talking about the
We're not
the
talking
safety
about
of,
any equipment at all. The
Right.
equipment we maintain on an annual basis. We do inspections. We make the proper repairs.
Mm-hmm.
But the town supports us with the mulch that goes down, the curbing around them. We did
Right.
the South Playground and replaced all the curbing, the
Right.
mulch, what have
Right.
you. But we never got to the base of the problem. The problem is that there's supposed to be drainage underneath the mulch, which takes the water away. So what we're really doing is we have the mulch that's sitting in water, and it's deteriorating.
Yeah.
So it's really a rehab. Pull them apart, fix
Right.
them, do it right, and make it safer for the children.
What is the condition of the Sax Playground? Just because I haven't been out there in a while.
There's
is it-
port in place there now. There's a recommendation to replace there's a big structure. It's like the old, I refer to them as monkey bars, but
Yeah.
they have ropes around them, and it goes up in a big pyramid. That's been, we've made some repairs to that over the last few years. The gentleman and the company that has been looking at them for us for the inspections has asked and said, we're at a point now where they have to be replaced, and that's a big chunk of money. We're going to have Kerma take a look at them for us also. Kerma is our insurance reciprocal, so maybe we'll get some better information on that. The port in place that was put there in 1995 is starting to deteriorate. That's the cushioning. There's no mulch there. It's just a cushioning
Yeah.
piece. There are
Yeah.
spots that are delaminating. There's pieces that are broken off. We really need to take a look at that.
Yeah, I feel especially because we've got those 5th and 6th graders. I mean, they all use it a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
you go out there
So-
days and you
Yeah.
you don't realize how many children are out
Yeah.
there at the same time. So,
All right, thanks.
roof ladders, we started a project. We have a few more to do. We're gonna ask for some money for that. The Propane Project. The propane, something that the town has embarked on. They really want us to change over to propane. We're doing a study now with a few engineers to come up with a plan for changing out the tanks along, hopefully this coming summer, if we can swing it. And then dovetailed with that is trying to do something with the old oil tanks. Maybe reduce the size of the oil tanks if we're going to do dual fuel. Maybe bring them above grade rather than below grade. You know, so it's in a planning stage, engineers are working on it, and we're actually right now looking for some pricing. We have some pricing already, but we're gonna look for some additional pricing on the installation.
Just one question.
Sure, Penny.
On the propane, all I would say is when we're doing the pricing and everything, let's make certain we have enough funds that we're also, I mean, I know you're covering it all, any safety aspects on it, you know, just that propane, you know, is more explosive. I know these are going to be underground tanks, which is the safest way to do it, but you want to make certain that they're secured from children and all
Absolutely.
gates and fencing and everything like that is.
Fred Baker's
as-
all over it.
Okay, wow.
We've talked to
That's
Fred.
good.
We
That's
talked to
good.
Fred, and Fred is just, he's very happy to see that we're moving forward in this kind of a fashion. They don't think they're ever gonna get a gas main in. This is the way to go, and it can cost us, it's economically, it's a benefit to us with propane. It's cheaper or less expensive than oil, and it's much cleaner. So you don't have as much maintenance on your boilers, on the burners, things of that nature. So I think it's the way to go. I think it's a good move at this point. We just have to make sure that the numbers work. So that was it for the district. Oh, no, excuse me, there's alarming. We haven't done a good job with alarming a lot of we've done energy management systems, we've installed sump pumps all over the place. We don't have a way of really notifying anybody that, hey, the pumps are not operating, the walk-in freezers are not working, so we're gonna lose product in there. The boilers are not running in the middle of the night. We might get a text message, and believe me, a lot of times you get it at 2 o'clock in the morning, you might not hear a text message. We wanna hook them up with an alarm, so it goes to a 24-hour central station where they'll call us at home, say, hey, guys, we have an issue, at least we'll know, rather than being surprised early in the morning, calling Brian and saying, hey, I don't think we can open Sax tomorrow, but.
I'm not sure if it's early in the morning or late at night sometimes, but
Or both.
would it go through the same system that we're using currently for
Yes.
other monitoring?
Yes, we have a 24-hour service for all our security. We have some of it, one of the energy management system here goes to another central station. So, you know, it's not that it's redundant, but this company has a 24-hour station that's managing our energy management system here. The other buildings are on a different system altogether, so we'll have to, I don't think we can bridge them. So the other 4 buildings will be on their own system, and the high school will be on a separate system. But there's some money involved there, you know, there's a lot of points, a lot of contacts that you have to cover.
Just while we're on, I'm just looking at your report from 2014. Is that it was the fire alarming system at the East School? Was one that you had noted needed, or Silver Petroselli noted needed? work?
We've fixed the problems with the fire alarm system. This is altogether different. This is a signal that tells us there's something wrong. It'll come right to somebody, John, myself, a couple of the maintenance guys are all in on that system. Just like a security alarm. Somebody's jostled the door and the door set off an alarm, we get a call. Right now, if the boiler goes down, we wouldn't know until it surprised us early in the morning.
So it would cover some pumps you mentioned. It would cover the boilers at all 5 of the buildings. It would cover the walk-in and the freezers, and because of the product that's in there, and so if a compressor were to go down or something were to go down, and it would, somebody would actually pick up the phone and call somebody to tell them there was a problem. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because right now we have it on the boilers, but it just sends an email?
Yes.
Like the system just sends an email that you may or may not receive in the middle of the night?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I mean, you might receive it, but you might be sound asleep.
Yes.
The tone isn't loud enough to wake you up.
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to East. And you're gonna see some things that are redundant in most of the buildings. One of them is carpet in the front main offices. This has been something that's been deferred for a number of years through our capital budget. It's important that we do it now. They're really worn out and they look kind of shabby. It's the first place that people meet the administrators in the building. We don't want to go to the carpet. We want to go to a vinyl tile in there. And if the administrators in the offices want to have a carpet, they can purchase some type of a throw rug or something. But it's much easier to maintain. It looks a lot cleaner, and the carpets that are in there are just horrible. They look worse than what's in here. No. They're really in bad shape. We clean them every year. They get a lot of beyond,
traffic.
yes. floor tile repairs at all the buildings. You know, we're looking at possibly down the road in the 5-year plan to come up with something to say, hey, we really ought to take big chunks of the building at a time. But for right now, we're looking at doing some of the floor tile repairs that are slip and fall hazards for students and staff, places where we have delaminating tiles, things of that nature. During our conversations with the administrators in the building and at East here, we looked at a wall that we painted about 1.5 years ago, and it looks like we never touched it. And it's right near the cafeteria. The students stage there, they lean on the wall, they throw a backpack on the wall, they just get beat up. We want to go back in and either paint it with some type of a special paint, which I don't have a lot of faith in, or we're looking at trying to put some bumpers on the wall with some vinyl panels and really clean it up and dress it up nice so that we can wipe it down and clean it off and keep it looking nice for a much longer period of time. And the cost on it isn't an operational cost. It's considerable expense, so that's why we have it in capital. The ADA sink upgrades, that's been on the radar in the capital plan for a couple of years. We put it out to bid and didn't get any responses 1.5 years ago. We hired a contractor to come in and take a look. We pulled a few pieces apart. They discovered what was behind the wall. There weren't a lot of surprises, which I think a lot of people were leery about bidding because they hadn't seen what was beyond them. So we've done a portion of them. Maybe we've done 50% of the rooms here at East and also at South, and we're looking for some funding to complete the job. We'd like to do the rest of the units in those buildings. Bathroom upgrades, we've done petitions in bathrooms over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. We did them upstairs, we did a few down by the gym. This is the last section of multiple stall restrooms in the hallway, and we'd like to get in and get the petitions taken care of. Domestic hot water, it's been on the plan, it was pushed out, we're trying to accelerate it now. We're having problems keeping them running. It looks like it makes a lot of sense. We've done Sax and South, John? And South. We got those 2 accomplished this year. We're looking for some money to get these other ones accomplished.
What does that mean?
Excuse me?
What do you mean by domestic hot water? Like hot water at the schools?
Yeah, it's like an oil burner, and we have them now, they're fired by propane. We're going to hopefully eventually get them hooked up to a new propane system. But yes, they supply all the hot water for the kitchen, the restrooms, domestic hot water. Nothing to do with heat, just hot water.
Right, it's not part
they
of
have
the
hot
boiler
water.
system. They do have hot water.
Okay.
Mhm, yeah, but they have to have hot water to open the building.
Okay.
But it's switching it over from an older oil
Got it.
unit into a
Okay.
propane unit.
Right.
Then it's on demand and it's more efficient.
Much
and
more efficient.
Burns
Got it.
cleaner. And more reliable, because this isn't,
Okay.
we're keeping this alive, I think is what Bob's telling us.
Over the course of the past few years, we've changed a lot of the controls on the hot water controls to the unit ventilators, which gives us the ability to control the flow of the hot water through the coil. Unit ventilators are not recommended by the state to be installed in any school buildings anymore because they're very inefficient. Now we go back, we have plenty of hot water, and there's a damper motor that opens and closes to let in, I always call it outside air, it's not fresh air, you can't bank on it being fresh. So it's an outside air damper. At East School, we've done some testing at East School. There's more moisture outside than there is in the building, and we have too much in the building. So you don't want to open the damper too often to bring that moisture in. But we can't control them properly because all the motors on those, what they call actuators, are not allowing the dampers to close properly. So we want to go back and do that, and we're planning on trying to do that in the elementary schools and at Sax.
Am I correct? Did I hear today that these were installed in 1989?
Yeah, I think they were.
These
I don't
motors.
know if 89 is the right date. I think some of them were done, it looks like there was a bubble around 95 where a lot of things were done.
95.
We don't have any good information about it. But 95 to now is still 20 years, and they really haven't had a lot of work done on them.
Yeah.
So we're kind of playing catch-up. Okay, let's move to South. We discussed today, and over the course of the last few weeks, a lot of money in masonry restoration, and I spoke to it a little bit earlier, that we're going to try to plug it in somewhere as a big project in the 5-year plan. Bless you.
Thank you.
But the chimney at South right now is really causing us some problems. The mortar joints. Did I miss? Oh, I didn't click, I'm sorry. There's South. Thank you. I was trying to get ahead of myself here. The chimney is something that we really need to take a look at this year. It's not going to collapse, but it causes us a lot of problems where the mortar joints are leaking. So we need to go up and actually tuck point. You clean out the cement, get all the loose stuff out, and repoint it with new masonry cement. So that stayed on the list. We culled it out of the major list where we're going to do a lot of masonry work.
How are you getting leaking into the school from the chimney?
It's actually been leaking down into the boiler room. And I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a couple of classrooms at South, 401, I think. They have chimneys in them. The original building had some fireplaces with chimneys that went into our chimney. Well, every so often we get water coming down. It's not Santa Claus, it's water. So, we don't want Santa to get all wet next week, so. No, this is something that's, it's really important we take care of, because if it deteriorates anymore, you're gonna run an issue of, are we really weakening the structure? You know, what are we doing on the inside? We have water coming in, not a good situation. Main office I talked about, it's same plan, vinyl tile, throw rugs in some of the administrators' offices. You'll see this Eat Street, there's a sign hanging out in front of the cafeteria. The administrators in the building have, at least I know at Sax and at South, they named the like areas of the building. Each street is the corridor outside the cafeteria. So that area, that particular area, the floor tile is failing terribly. We want to replace it. Along with that, not on here right now, but there's a piece of it about hazardous materials, because we have some old, we know, based on some information we have, that there's asbestos in the mastic that holds the tile down. So we'd have to do some kind of remediation and then put a new floor in. Classroom ADA millwork, we talked about that before. We were doing it at East, coming back to do it, we're looking for some additional money. And that's really some cabinets that a child in a wheelchair can wheel underneath and get to a sink. We don't have that ability now. The old sinks don't provide that. And believe it or not, in South, there are some old glass fuse panels that are older than I am, I think, well, they can't be, because I was around before the building was built. But they're the old, if you're familiar with them, the old screw-in glass fuses. They don't belong in our buildings. So we really want to tear those panels out and do the right thing.
Are there any of those elsewhere, or is that the only building?
South is the only one we have, the only ones we've come across, you know. And believe me, we're always looking. And but that one's been on the radar for a while, and it's time that we just get it done.
I think it's the
Pretty
oldest
soon, they're not
school.
going to be manufacturing those fuses.
South is the oldest school.
South is 1950.
Yeah. But it does have, it has chimneys and fireplaces, South, you know. There's something to be said about the 50s. Yeah. Corridor ventilation, same situation. We're trying to get airflow in the buildings. We're finding that we don't have enough. We've had an engineer take a look at it. He's coming up with some ideas and thoughts about how we can correct that. And we'll have some more information on that in the next few weeks. And South is the same with the outdoor air dampers. Same situation, we need the new control motors on them to make them operate correctly. West, sounds like a repeat act here. There's carpet in the front main office, similar to the other two main offices. Bathroom ADA requirements. We've got to install some additional grab bars and things of that nature in the bathrooms at West. We've done some of them. We're going to be doing a few more later on in this presentation at the high school, because the high school, just as long as I'm talking about these ADA things and requirements, there's a compliance issue here at the high school. They changed the regulation about 5 years ago, and they require us to put an additional grab bar on, which means we have to open the wall in some places and put blocking behind the wall. So it's not a 5-minute fix where you just go screw them on the wall and and say, hey, we're in compliance. It takes some work to get done. So, let's see. Let's domestic hot water is the same thing here at West. I skipped over the new gutter guards. We have a situation where we've got a bad floor in the gym. We've had umpteen people looking at it. We have engineers looking all over. Unfortunately, we've had a drought for the last couple of years, so we're not getting what we need to get to see what's going to happen if we get a lot of water, a lot of rain. So we're all praying that we don't have rain for the next 7 or 8 years, and maybe we can get by. No, we're not. We got that big pipe running over through us. But
it's kind of ugly.
we're taking it a little bit at a time. Over the holiday, we're going to have somebody go in and clean down some of the leaders, because we're finding, we did some test pits up there, excuse me, and we don't know where all these pipes run to. There's no drawing that says they go out to a certain drain pipe or what have you. The leaders are clogged, so we want somebody to come in. We have a company on board. They're going to be able to go in, clean all the pipes out, and then go in with a scope and take pictures so we can see where they are. We were a little nervous about spending too much money, so we're only going to really do the third building right now and try to get all those leaders and find out if that's what's causing the water condition in the gym. But the engineer and the geotech guy said, you know, really the whole building should be done. So we're going to take it one chunk at a time to see if that's what the issue really is.
After we scope them, we're going to put the gutter guards on. So.
Outdoor air dampers, we spoke about them at the other buildings. Water supply isolation valves. Whenever we have an issue in a bathroom in any of the buildings, I always say, let's go shut the valve off that's right outside the bathroom and shut the water off there so we can isolate the bathroom. West doesn't have any of those. So every time we have a bathroom issue, we close the bathroom for a period of time until we can wait till the children are gone and we can shut the water off before we can accomplish the repair.
So you can't repair anything?
Every time we go and make one of these repairs, John and I always tell them, put a valve on the pipe that goes into the bathroom while we got it shut down. It's just taking us a long time to get there. Really makes a lot of sense so we don't flood the place again, that we have these valves put in the ceiling and isolate each bathroom rather than shutting the whole building off.
Yeah. Well, and then does that lead to like sort of overtime because you can't do any of the work during the day because you right now you'd have to, you know,
It
shut the
does.
water off to the building? You'd
It
have to do
does.
it after hours?
Yeah.
So that sounds like a good,
Yeah. So it's something that I think we'd rather be safe than sorry. It's on the list. We'll throw in, we have numbers for it, but we're not discussing those numbers tonight. This is just a generalization of what we're doing. Sax masonry repairs and repointing the brick. We actually have the engineer working on it right now. Hopefully, in the February break, we're going to take some walls on the interior of the building apart to see exactly what's causing some of these stress cracks in the building. There are a few that are rather substantial, one in the stairwell. I didn't click again. I'm sorry. Did I catch up? I didn't catch up yet, did I?
No.
Where'd I go?
Good.
Okay. And hopefully we'll get some of that done, but there's money in the 5-year plan that's plotted out every other year at a rather large amount of money. So we really want to take a close look at that and see if we can put it all in a big package and say, hey, let's get a whole bunch of this done in one fiscal year, so we're not piecemealing every other year. Playground equipment I spoke to before. There's one piece that should be replaced. It's pretty substantial, and the port in place needs to be looked at. I know this has been on Greg's radar for a while, so time we took a look at it. There are benches in the cafeteria that run along the window wall. The children very rarely sit on them. They're starting to fall apart. They're made out of plywood. The registers on them are rather expensive, and they get damaged pretty easily. We're always looking for more room in that cafeteria. So we looked at it with a vendor, and we can take all that seating out of there and probably capture another 2 feet all along that wall and just put baseboard heat on the bottom. And get rid of the bench and all the associated ventilators and everything else that goes with it. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Definitely.
And it'll help us get some more seating in there that's at a table where a child can have lunch.
They like to stand on it too,
Yeah, I know.
which is probably why the vent. all
And
the
paint
vents
on the
are-
window,
Yeah,
and
I
yeah,
know.
that's-
I've been to many of those breakfasts.
Corridor ventilation, same thing in every building. We're finding that we don't feel like we're getting enough air circulation. We have an engineer working with us now to try to come up with some ideas. We still have approximately a dozen HVAC valves that we haven't corrected. We'd like to get some money to get those. Boiler expansion tanks. Penny, don't be mad at me. We have expansion tanks at Sax that we've identified through our engineer that they aren't sufficient. And what an expansion tank does, the hot and cold water that heats and air conditions the building, it expands and contracts. So you have to have a vessel to hold on to that water that expands, otherwise you lose it through a relief valve. We've been maintaining fairly well, but we found that we're way behind, low on the capacity. So we know we have to do it. When we talked to the architect that's building the extension for 24,000 square feet, they hadn't planned on doing anything with expansion. So we kind of feel it's part of that building project, that they should capture those expansion tanks and not be an operational. We think that the engineer should have picked that up when he designed the new system. Granted, we knew we were deficient. We weren't waiting. We were going to try to do it in capital. But now that the other section of the building is going up, saying, hey, we're increasing our load even more, we think it should be done through the building. But Penny and I'll have to talk about that and the committee.
Putting it on the agenda.
Yes. Thank you, Penny. And the outdoor air dampers, the same thing. Like I said, a lot of this is redundant because it's unit ventilators in all these buildings, and they need help. They need help. High school. The ADA upgrades, I talked to you about the new compliance issue there, where we're gonna have to go back and add a whole bunch of new grab bars in the restrooms. Library carpet, big area. Big area. It's seen its day, it's worn, doesn't look very attractive. We'd like you to consider taking a look at that and spending the money to get that, as well as this carpeting here in the Wagner room.
Do we know their age, Bob?
These are all 2006, I guess?
You know, Bob, sorry, going back to the ADA upgrades on
Sure.
the bathroom. So this building was renovated, Penny. What year was this?
2006?
2006? So
What?
have
Oh.
we,
I
high
I think that's
school?
about when we finished it.
Yeah.
So do we have extensive ADA updates since 2006?
Just on the grab bars in the restrooms.
Just, okay.
That's
Sorry.
all,
So
that's
that's a
all that
new-
this
That's new.
entails. Yeah. Everything else,
Okay.
we're in compliance.
Okay.
We're ADA compliant in all the labs and things of that nature.
Okay.
But the restrooms, they've added an additional, I think there used to be 3 bars, now you have to have a 4th bar,
Okay.
so,
So are these grab bars into the cement block walls?
yeah.
So you have to go through the whole asbestos management plan?
Yep. So we'll have to drill them
they're
under
not,
control
if they're old
conditions
walls.
and things of that
Right.
nature,
Oh
yeah.
my
Absolutely. The cafeteria kitchen, we're talking about a new floor, and that's really not the right phraseology. We're looking at a section of the kitchen floor. Down the road, we may be looking at all of the kitchen floor, but for right now, what's happened over the course of years with bringing in pallets of water, pallets of food with a jack, the wheel actually ripples the floor. We've repaired it a whole bunch of times. Trying to come up with a new idea and a new process to either do some type of a seamless vinyl, something of that nature that's gonna bond to the floor. What we have right now are 5-foot square sections of tile with little nubbies on them, like little bumps. And when the wheels hit those things with a half a ton of water on it, It just pushes that 5x5 right across the floor. So we go back and we try to glue it. We've done a lot of things with them. It's just time to take out a section and really do it the right way. And those pallet jacks are only in certain areas of the kitchen. They don't go anywhere near the prep area. They're kind of off to the side near where the walk-in boxes are. So it's not an extensive thing, but it's costly. Tear up what's there and to put down a new flooring system. Auditorium lighting, and Alan left before I could talk to you about all this. I'm only joking. There's two processes here. One has to do with currently, some of the house lights controllers are bad. We have a gentleman coming in to take a look, only in the auditorium. The little head-end equipment is shot. They're looking at it to try to, they don't want to refurbish, they want to renew. We might have to do a little bit of wiring. But right now, they have a program where they can hit the buttons and get the house lights all to turn on and off when there's intermission and all. It's not working. We also talked to them, as long as they were there, we have a mat in the back of the auditorium that crosses the aisle, and all the wires that are coming out of the control booth go over to where the sound and the lighting board are. And surprise to me, we have like 6 or 8 wires on the floor. And the gentleman said, we could do this with a couple of Cat 5s that we could run over the ceiling with a little controller box and get them out of the aisle. So we're looking at that right now, but I didn't want to take away from Alan's report from Costler. That was, I guess it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago now maybe, where they talked about renovating a lot of the stage lighting and things at the high school. So those are 2 items, and the Costler report is just something that I think we'd like to resurrect and discuss in detail. And then one thing that I thought we had that we don't have, we're not hooked up to the emergency generator for the bus building. People ask, well, why does it have to be on the emergency generator? If there's a catastrophe in town, there's a lot of issues, phone service goes down, whatever, we need to be able to get to the radios and power up all the stuff in that bus building to be able to communicate with the buses that are out on the road. Not a big ticket item, but it's something that we should do. And we would like to see that done sooner rather than later. Yeah. I think that's it. I don't have any more clicking.
Thanks, Bob. I just had one quick request. I don't know how difficult it'd be, but as you're formalizing the dollars and everything when you bring forward the capital budget, if you could estimate the age of some of the things, just so that, you know, when we're talking about it and putting it down on the piece of paper, I think it would help as we, you know, make determinations and as the town makes determinations, and they can see exactly, you know, sometimes you think, wow, the high school auditorium, and then you're like, oh, 2006, that's 10 years ago. I mean, I don't even have a dishwasher that lasts 10 years anymore, so I don't, you know, I mean, I think it's important for us to really put dates down so that we get a sense of how old things really are.
Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing that I think might be helpful is a number of the items that you talked about are in the facilities report that we got in December of 2014 from Silver Petrocelli. I mean, you're obviously working down the list of repairs that have to be made. So I think it's good to maybe reference that as well. I mean, these are items that we've been telling the town bodies that are, you know, need to be done.
Yeah, and you'll see some references when we do the presentation with the dollars, where things have been accelerated, where we were asked to defer a lot of projects that we push further out. But as you push them further out, you're going into a situation where all the other stuff is getting older, and all of a sudden they raise their hand and say, oops, my turn, I need to get fixed now. So as we keep deferring these things, we're just creating a logjam. And the big things, the big elephants in the room are the underground storage tanks, the roofs, and believe it or not too far in the distance, paving in all the parking lots. 3 years ago, we crack sealed, and Tiger said we'd have 5 years. So we're looking 2-3 years down the road, you know, and they're substantial. I mean, south alone, the two lots cost us $700,000. Wow. And we're estimating that this building is about $750,000.
Yeah.
conservative numbers. You know, so those are things that are just out there, big numbers, big ticket items that I hope that everybody's aware of. So when you hear those things and you see them all, there's a sense of urgency to how we're going to get these things fixed before they all start falling apart.
Anybody have any more questions? The only other thing I had, so it was a reminder, because I'm like, how many years ago was the Silver Petroselli report? And that was really helpful. How long, that was a 5-year or 10-year capital plan that they put together for us? I haven't looked at it in a few years.
They actually just did what they called the building condition survey, and they estimated what they thought it would cost to repair them in
Okay.
those days' dollars.
So
Well,
when
on
you're
that-
looking at it, at some point, we're going to have them come back in. And so, when you do that 5-year capital plan, I don't know at what point we need to have that done, but you should have, it's a very helpful report, and it helps the town, I think, and us sort of be able to look forward and say, what else are we missing? And, and so we probably every 5 to 10 years, you need to have them come back in and do it so that and it's not inexpensive to have them come. So I think it would be good to give the town a heads up that that money might need to come back into the budget in a few years.
When we did it 3 years ago, a lot of these items were on there.
Yeah.
And we looked at doing some of them, and then we deferred some. So as we keep deferring, it's just,
Well, and the report has priorities to it, right? Priority 1, 2, 3, 4. And I believe I'd have to see it to be sure, but we've covered all of the ones.
most of the ones.
Most of them.
I think some of the masonry was,
Okay, was that
some
also?
was listed as ones, yeah.
So, yeah, we do continue to work off of it.
You're updating the 5-year capital plan, so we're going to get a renewed one that we'll see along with the whole budget presentation with the big items, where the roofs and
Yep.
where the underground storage
Yep.
tanks fall, along with all these other items.
This was just a narrative.
Right,
The spreadsheet's coming next.
Right. Similar to what we've had in the past.
Right,
Where
right. No,
we're
that'll be
adding a
good.
new column and taking a look at it all. Yeah. Good.
Okay. If no one else has any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So Matt and Scott could
Oh, okay.
come up, talk about capital and the tech.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt and Scott.
And I know we had some conversation at the board workshop about it, but as a capital item, since it is the capital lease, I'd asked Matt and Scott to come for us just to give a high-level overview and be able to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you all. Good to see you again. Happy holidays to everyone. In our plans for the coming year for our lease, we've looked at a few different things across the board, but just some highlights that we'll go over tonight. And one of the main areas that is in need of an upgrade this year is both a lab at the high school in the music tech area, and also in the Sax art area. The Sax art one is perhaps one of the oldest labs in terms of equipment condition. And both of these areas, as you saw even from Alan's presentation about music, in the art, the visual performing arts is very vibrant at our schools. And these are high-use areas that we are been supporting for quite some time now, and this will bring us now into a space where these two will be high-tech and meeting the needs of the students very well. I think that one of the aspects of these are, while we concentrate on these being mostly of the Apple equipment, they do last longer, but these two labs are close to the oldest in the group. And the music lab is pretty high-end in terms of the requirements of the equipment and the ability, faster processors, more storage, and some of the programs they're running are pretty high-end. So it's good to see those two make it on our list of upgrades. Another area that Matt can speak to right now is the program at Sax, and in terms of our equipment use there and how we're putting together a program of deployment of some new equipment and also redistribution of some existing equipment, and then I'll come back up and speak to the last point as well.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, everyone. So currently at Sax, the majority of the devices that we have are on carts, and they're shared amongst teachers and teams, and they're moved from classroom to classroom based on instructional or assessment need. So the proposal that we're putting out really is looking to establish sets of devices that will remain in the core classroom areas 5th through 8th. And the core classrooms are math, science, social studies, and language arts. As we were putting together the plan, we started by looking at the resources that we already have in place, starting with the devices that we have at Sax, and then looking to recapture some devices from the BYOD initiative that we have here at the high school. And actually, that's already underway, where we started to move some devices from the high school over to Sax. And the focus is really, there's a humanities focus, because we know that students are really, in those areas of social studies and language arts, they're creating a tremendous amount of content and materials, multimedia presentations, engaged in a tremendous amount of research, and also engaged in the digital citizenship lessons that I talked to you about a little while ago. So the other part of it is that in coming up with the plan, we also looked at the different types of devices that we have in place. So we already have iPads, we have Chromebooks, and we have PCs. And we look to try to fit the device with the instructional need. So for example, in science, in some levels, it's more appropriate to have an iPad because some of the apps that we want to use for coding, like hopscotch, et cetera, work best off of an iPad, where for the digital citizenship lessons, we're going to look to work off of PCs. Okay, so really, we're really working to build off of the resources that we have, a moderate investment in trying to make sure that we have the device. So what we'd end up having is devices that are in the back of those classrooms, those core classrooms, 5th through 8th grade, and that students could walk into the classroom, take off of a cart that will remain there, use it for the class period, and then put back of the cart, and then move to their next class. Okay. So now we'll pass it back to Scott.
I'll add from a support resource, that's a very logical way of doing it. The carts moving around, a lot of equipment gets put in places where it shouldn't be, meaning we'll take 2 from this cart, move to this cart. Gives us more of a fixed stock in the rooms that they can rely on every day. So I think that's a great way of going about it. Near and dear to my heart is to somewhat as the audio-visual updates. I started as an AV guy. I think I hid my beeper somewhere. But we last year and the year before began a program of starting to look at both the projector stock across the schools, improving and upgrading that, and trying to get ourselves in a place where they're all within a certain couple years of age. They do last 8 to 10 years, but we're trying to use about that 8-year, 7-year moment to start looking at whether they need replacement. There's a small amount of machines left at the elementaries that need to be replaced, and then also last year we did about half of the stock at the high school that was of older nature and replaced it, and we're looking to finish that out in this coming year with a few more at Sax as well. This keeps everybody in a interactive presentation mode, whether it be a smart board or whether it be a whiteboard, so that they have the ability to continue to use the tools that they're used to using, such as the smart presentation tools, and also gives them some reliable equipment and gives us, from a service point of view, a series of equipment that is closer in age, keeps the amount of equipment and supplies and bulbs and things needed common amongst what we're doing, so it lessens overall maintenance costs as well. I think this will help us keep a handle on the maintenance costs of the AV stock. And also, in our interests in getting similar equipment and serviceable equipment at the elementaries, we want to do some adjustments in the next year to make their cafetoriums digital. 2 out of 3 have that type of projector already, but they need to be wired for it. So we'll do that on the operating side, but on the capital side, one of the schools will be looking at an upgrade possibly to their projector to become digital as well. So that's, in a nutshell, our area of technology lease, and we'll take any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody from the board have any questions? Brennan?
Are there any other areas where you feel that the schools are deficient, and there needs to be, significant additional spend resources?
Well, I mentioned, I think, 2 years ago that I was worried about the audio-visual stock, and I don't want to dwell on that too long, but as Bob pointed out, upgrading the auditorium lighting is an important issue. We've encountered that issue of having 3 or 4 technicians in the room and trying to work with a system that's aging and is not operating to the best of its abilities. So I'd say our investment in the AV side of the auditorium, because you're building a beautiful facility at Sax, and we want to keep the high school facility that holds 900 or so people in it as a high-class facility as well. So I think we'll take a look closer at the booth there, so to speak, and see what it's got going on over the next year. But other than that, I think we've starting to level out in terms of the areas that we looked at when I first came on, and as Matt's come on with another set of eyes. I think that the changing nature of the classroom is something Matt's talked about, and whether or not, and that may be more a furniture issue with the mobility rather than a technology issue. But I think that we've talked about and also are working on more electricity and more charging stations for the mobile equipment in the rooms, which again, I think are mostly operating things, unless we chose to do it in a patterned way and take a whole school and do 30 rooms at once.
If I could just add very quickly to that. In years past, if you look back at our technology capital budget, you see some special projects in there. We did that for the wiring at the 2 buildings, what have you. So as we think about this year's going forward and what might happen, say, 2 years out or 3 years out, in answer to your question, we're talking about the planetarium. That's a space that hasn't had any work in an awfully long time. It has what I think could safely be called an antiquated projector. And sort of the use of that room and the purposes and those things. So I think that's talking about needs, whether it's immediate, it's still functioning, it's working. We're still able to fly the person who repairs it out in order to make that repair. We're going to maybe start paying his health insurance as well. But it is not, it's an uncommon model because it's analog. Right. The projector we have is actually, it's analog with gears and dials and the whole thing. So we're talking about that space and both the projector and the use of the space and the needs. So that's a larger ticket item that some part of the future we'll be having that discussion.
I just want to say I'm glad that's on the radar, because that was left out of the high school project. That room basically just got new carpet, and so that equipment goes way back.
It does.
So while the high school was renovated, the planetarium the equipment in the planetarium did not receive any upgrade. So it's good to have it come forward.
Yeah, and we're using it and keeping it alive, and the science department's doing a wonderful job, and we're still having other schools come and look, and the middle school comes, elementaries come, but we're going to get to a point pretty soon where we can't have it repaired anymore. And I do think that there are new opportunities there as well with the space itself, so we'll have that conversation. Thank you.
Jen?
So you might have actually said this, but the audiovisual update, does that also include, did you say I know you said when technicians go into the rooms to fix things, is like the smart board, so the smart boards?
Correct. We've been replacing smart boards or smart board projectors with interactive projectors at the upper levels. Mm-hmm. High school in general is not as tied to the touch and interaction of the screen from a smart board branding sense.
Right.
They may still use smart software, which includes smart notes and such, but it works just as admirably on any brand's interactive projector. At the lower levels, at elementary, we still see a lot of use of the smart traditional product. But what we're up against is in the competitive marketplace, that product is morphing into the interactive LED or LCD type screen. Mm-hmm. And in some environments, that's useful depending on the classroom layout. But right now, and there's new competitive products that we're evaluating. It's going to be an interesting few years down the road when the actual original smart projectors are no longer made.
So how long have they been there? They're like...
Before my time, there was a large PTC
they funded
program to install them. but they are within 5 to 6 years old, I believe, because the
Right.
age of the projectors are not beyond 8 years. We used 8 as the cutoff when I began looking at this last year, and took everything that was over 8 years old and said, these are targeted to be replaced.
Right.
So I think we're in good shape. We do have an operating budget that works from the perspective of supporting the existing projectors. We don't get a lot of issues overall with the projectors, with the boards themselves, excuse me. The projectors show the natural aging of needing filter replacements, bulb replacements and such. But overall, the durability of the projectors in the system has been pretty good as we've moved to, a couple particular brands. Don't want to make it a commercial for anybody's stuff here.
But really, just very, very quickly, to your credit, your department's credit, I know the costs and the replacements of the boards at the high school and the middle school significantly less than the smart product itself, which is a different technology in doing that. So in identifying an alternate product and using that product, I know you've been able to save quite a bit. So
Right.
that's helpful.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. All right. The next item on the agenda is the statement of accounts with Dr. Keating.
Good evening. One thing I did want to mention before we left Capitol is that we will be having the planned vehicle replacement for SUVs for special ed, so you'll be seeing that in the budget as well. Roy wasn't here tonight, but we did want to mention that.
Right, and our intention is to stay on the schedule that was in last year's budget, I
Right.
believe, correct?
Exactly.
Good, thanks.
All
John.
right, before you, tonight, you had in place, in your places, the financial statement of accounts for the general fund, but also for the grants funds, the food service funds, the building rental funds, donations, and summer school. So I thought I would very briefly walk you through the reports. We do not have any transfers on this report. We are in the process of doing the reforecast for the budget. So probably at this point, it looks like late January, we will have a report with transfers on it that aligns to the budget documentation for the revised budget. So far, we have spent 33.2% of our $86.2 million budget. We've encumbered 60%. So basically, over 90% of the budget has been encumbered through the end of November. We are balanced with the town, which we do every month. And the expenditures right now do not appear overly concerning, other than a few areas that will be addressed within the reforecast. So we'll talk more about that next month. We do have on page 7 the financial statements for federal and state grants. And you'll see here that there is a net negative for when you compare revenues and expenditures on this report. And the reason for this is that we basically have grant entitlements. We spend the money and then we request a reimbursement on it. So you'll see this throughout the year. We're going to publish 3 reports prior to the final. And so you'll see this consistently. But at the end of the year, we wrap it up. And basically what you spend, you should receive. All right. There is a fund balance on the statements at the end of June 2016 of $229,181. And we're going to be looking into that a little deeper during the school year to find out what the origin of those funds, and if possible, we're going to clean that up, because really these funds should just wash. You spend the money, you receive the money, and it should really net out close to zero at the end of the year. So we'll do some work on that during this year. As far as the lunch program goes, we have 4 months, or 3 months actually, of performance here. And we are performing, I think, very good for this time of year at $128,000. We do spend more money over the winter months for health benefits. while we're not actually selling and receiving revenue. So this kind of moderates out a little bit over the winter months when we're having school breaks and still having to pay expenses. But overall, the program is running very healthy, and revenues are right where they've been year after year. Very consistent. And finally, we have school facilities, donations, and summer school. And school facilities are really just starting up in terms of the rental. The Basketball Association does use our facilities quite frequently during the winter months, and so this will ratchet up and we'll start to incur expense and bill out expense. But right now, we have about 13,000 in billings, which equal basically what we've incurred, because they're all basically user groups that are qualified as youth groups here in town. So we really don't have any profit margin there for those groups. And then the donations are coming in strong so far at this time of year. It's 167,000. We've also received some in-kind donations of 15,000. So we wanted to note that. And again, the summer school program continues to operate, I think, very efficiently. Our revenues for this past summer was 152,000. Expenditures were 116. So there was $36,000 retained in fund balance moving forward. All of these funds we're moving as best we can to automated cash receipts. So the summer school program really did a great job this year at a very late notice in terms of billing out and asking people to go online and pay, and it worked out really well. So we hope to increase participation in that part of the program next year. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Keating. Penny?
So in terms of the fund balance in the summer school program, are we still we've been looking for ways to spend that down that are appropriate in terms of accounting and use? Are we continuing to do that? And do we think we're going to be some items, where we can use some of the capital in that?
Sure. I mean, you probably could speak better to it, Jill. We have purchased equipment to support the program.
So we continue to purchase equipment to help support the program for new courses that will be running in the upcoming school year. So right now, we've purchased like robotics and equipment of that nature. Our STEM programs have really taken off. Last year, we really utilized the high school and offered some very new courses that I think we're going to continue into this school year because this upcoming summer, because they were just so successful. We opened up like the Rams Cafe and ran a cooking class for students. We opened up some of the tech labs and ran some music classes for them. We're looking to try to maybe even do like a broadcast where we can use the studio. So certainly we want to take into consideration any wear and tear that, we bring into the high school as well when we're using all of that equipment. Also, we continue to run courses even if they have small enrollment. Because I think we just want to support children that have a special interest and really want to take, an initiative in those courses that are being offered, so.
Well, and I know at some point you all were thinking that you were going to look at the appropriate level of fund balance to carry over from year to year, and I don't know if we're at that point yet. I mean, it's not one that we're looking to, you need a little bit of seed money to have the courses, get ready for the year too. So
We
I
do.
I don't know what the fund balance that we carry over each year at the end is, what the appropriate level is.
I think it'd be something that Dr. Keating and I can look into and really take a close look at how much startup money that we need now that we have a good idea of what courses we'll be running. But it's once again those new initiatives that come out, like these new exciting, innovative courses that you want to just be able to have that startup money for them as well. But certainly we can look into all of that and try to get a better understanding of how much we should be carrying over from year to year because there are a lot of expenses that are purchased at the end of the school year in June to prepare for the beginning of those courses.
Right.
Any other questions? So I guess I only have one question, and it's more to sort of address something that'll probably come up in the budget process. In the cafeteria account, that balance. You know, we constantly get the request, you know, are we going to be able to take on more of, you know, the expenses associated with the staffing of the cafeteria through the balance in the cafeteria funds? And so you could kind of address that as it relates to that issue.
Right, we do take a look at that annually, because we have to report out on Schedule 3 of the EDO1.
Come to the microphone.
Sorry. That's reviewed annually when we prepare the EDO1. There's a Schedule 3 that's dedicated to food service. Excuse me. And the fund balance for 1 year is not adequate to pay for the 1 year of employee insurance. So that's just the fact of the matter. So you'd have to have a few choices in terms of, do you increase revenue? Do you just supplement it to some extent? You know, so there's a few options to consider, but it certainly would be a major impact, I think, on the cost structure of the program and the affordability of the program for students, if you were to take that on.
Yeah, we're already kind of one of the higher priced food systems in the district. I mean, I think a few years ago we looked at it, and we're definitely not a low-cost provider already. So it would be, you'd be talking about a lot of additional expense to families in the community.
And one thing I would mention is that this fund has been, I think, managed very well in terms of the replacement of equipment within the kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
So that he hasn't really asked the board for equipment money, and I would probably say many years. I haven't looked back, but I haven't seen it in the file. He basically arranges and looks at his food, his equipment. He knows what's in the queue to be replaced, and some of the equipment is very expensive, like a freezer and a fridge and those things.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been able to manage it because of the fund balance that he does have.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe when we go through the budget process this year, we could kind of highlight some of the, if you have that data.
Okay.
I think it'd be important to highlight to the town bodies how much money has come out of that that they haven't had to go through the capital budget or, you know, or the operating budget
Right.
annually, so.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Any other questions? Right. All right. So we're moving back to the second action item on the agenda, the 2018-19 calendar. It's the second read, and if I could get a motion to, it's actually a vote, but if I could, we had a motion to approve the proposed new NCPS calendar for 2018 as first moved and seconded by Ms. West and Ms. Rashin respectively on November 21st, 2016. Is there any further discussion? Excuse me. If there's no discussion, if I could have a vote to approve the calendar that's been presented for the last month. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Sorry. All right. Comments from the public. Anyone wish to address the public? The board? Seeing none, we'll move to announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzy.
Sure. We will have the calendar up on the website as soon in the next couple of days. That's for the 18-19 school year. Simply, announcements tonight. First, to thank the board. I know it's quite a bit to come to 4 meetings in 5 weeks, and I want to thank everyone that's here and the board members that couldn't make it, for their commitment this time of year. I know it's very busy for everybody. Our next meeting will be the presentation of the superintendent's budget, and we'll have our operating budget, our capital budget, and lots to talk about. But between now and then, I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays and wonderful break. Hopefully everyone is taking a break and enjoy some time with family and friends, and see you all in the new year. Well, thank you.
Wow, thank you. So if I could get a motion to adjourn. Hazel, second. Brendan, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.